peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us. This is Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and as usual, we're coming to you all the way from Kenya's capital here in Nairobi. A beautiful afternoon and a good day it has been. And on today's show, and like what we usually do, we have a topic of discussion this afternoon, and we shall be looking at a worldwide plight of the refugees across the world. We know this is not just a Kenyan problem. Early in the morning, we were dealing with it, but we know it is something that has affected a lot of countries across the world. And to lead us on this conversation will be Dr. David Matanga from the Political Command Center. Doctor, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Miriam. Thank you very much for keeping the fort, and thank you very much for our viewers, and thank you very much, Douglas Bidi Kirimi, for being there with us. The plight of refugees worldwide is similar to any other country, but changes its formation and the color according to the situation and the country where you find yourself. First of all, from the background of experience, the first world have similar problems. That's why they have created what we call immigration policies to bar people from going to claim asylum into their countries. The biggest problem, and Kenya faces the biggest challenge, because it has been the only country in the Great Lakes region and in Africa with the biggest number of refugees and the biggest camps of the United Nations. Kenya equally has accepted responsibility. And as a country that has accepted the responsibility, a member of the United Nations, there are so many obligations that they have to meet and to accept, and agreements that they have signed. I'm laying this background in order to bring about a very serious conversation. Who is a refugee, and how does a refugee supposed to do according to the policies of each of the country? Most of us who became refugees as a result of political persecution and regime change, militarism, quasi-military, quasi-democracies, we have gone through a lot of transition. And you need to know the guidelines, the rules of that particular country where you have gone to seek asylum. Some of us, 1987, we went out of our countries. We left 1985, we entered and arrived on a long journey in two countries unknown to us. But there were guidelines. And those guidelines include, one of the rule is never to use violence. For example, in Britain, you can be granted asylum, but you are not supposed to use violence against the state where you came from. The regulations vary, and they are all contained under the Geneva Convention of 1954. For those who are very conversant, the rights of a refugee, the Geneva Convention that protects the refugees. If someone is seeking political asylum from persecution from the same government, you have no right to return that person back to that government. But also the refugee has got obligations to make. You can't go 250 miles near the border with the country. For example, if I'm seeking refugee status in Kenya, I wouldn't go. I'm not a refugee in Kenya. Most people, Miriam, think I am. I am not. I've never put an application for refugee status in this country. No. So I am not. I'm a global citizen. I do my work in Kenya, and that is what I do. So if you are seeking refugee status in Kenya, you don't go to Kisumu and start harassing Uganda every day. If you're Sudanese, you don't go to Lodwar or Lochuga or Lokichi. There's a town there. Yes. And start throwing stones across. Or if you are from Somalia, you don't go to Mandera and start crossing to train and then come to bomb people. Those regulations are very clear, well stipulated under the Geneva Convention. No country can accept you. No country can accept you and tell you that, okay, you are here in Britain, but use Britain to go and get arms to go and overthrow governments in Africa. No. The plight of the refugees everywhere worldwide is the same. They are safeguarded. Their rights are safeguarded. Their rights are kept under the Geneva Convention. But the rights of the nation, a nation deserves the right to accept which person it has got to accept. If they find it is very difficult, the nation has to ask that particular country, or UN, that can you take this man away? We have so many friends in 1985 who could not be accommodated in Kenya. One of them was Dr. Milton Obote, my president. He arrived in Kenya. We stayed in Kenya, but Moi could not allow us to stay here any longer. He boarded us on a cargo plane and threw us to Dar es Salaam. Dar es Salaam rejected us until we flew into Zambia, where Kaunda accepted the plane to land. So these are some of the things, the stories. Some of us have to escape through the Magufuli, that same place where people were doing the parade, to come back to find a way out of the Kenya. Under Moi, it was very strict as it is. He accepted the people. But also there were strict measures that if refugees became a very dangerous situation for everybody, that if you are found on the streets, every Friday you must have 100 shillings or 150 to bribe the policeman by then in order to survive in this country. But later on, the Kenya government went ahead, created those two camps, Daba and Kakuma. There was no terrorism. There were no people who could come from those camps to come and kill Kenyans. The situation which we have today, Miriam, is very different. That there are terrorists there. They are in these camps. They also plan together with other terrorists to dismember the people of Kenya. So the people of Kenya are not going to sit quiet and watch. That one is one point. Second point is, what are the implications of 14 days? Ramifications. There are quite a number of diplomatic ramifications. But what about the countries where they come from? Kenya is paying a double tragedy. Actually, it has a double loss. One, Kenya is fighting to pacify Somalia. Somalia is fighting Kenya. And yet Kenya is sacrificing its troops to fight Al-Shabaab in order for Somalia to stabilize, and then the refugees go back to their home. But the Somalia government itself does not like Kenya. This is where the problem is. And that is why I am saying, and I'm today telling you, Miriam, the only solution left, the only way we can have a harmonious engagement is when Mr. Farimajo is out of power. If Mr. Farimajo is in power in Mogadishu, the relationship between Kenya will make the plight of refugees in Kakuma and Dadaab very worsening. So the UN equally, as it wants to come up, I've seen the statement that you read, what the UN has just issued, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, trying to tell Kenya to give them time and to have a dialogue over the issue. The one of the most important things that this dialogue should lead to is the removal of a bad government that is not making conditions conducive for the return of the refugees. Because if you return most of the Somalis who are in Dadaab, some of them have nowhere to go. They don't know where they came from. Some were born in Somalia, in Dadaab. Some don't, their parents were killed. Some come from areas of Al-Shabaab. So where are you going to take them? That becomes a very complicated matter. I don't think there are countries today that are ready to take 10,000. Since we have even had a problem of Rohingya, the Rohingya refugees across in Myanmar, they are still there. Some of them live on water. In fact, they have constructed their houses on water. Miriam, you have seen the life around there in the Asian enclave, near Bangladesh and other places. They have been discriminated. They have been chased out of Burma, and they have been told you go where you belong. Bangladesh does not want them. Burma does not like them. That creates a problem for the world. Every country in the world is trying to tighten its immigration status and immigration rules. There's nobody. One of the problems that made Britain disagree with European Union is the result of refugees. And that is exactly what has caused the breakup of the European Union. Because all the people from the Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, poured themselves into the small island until the island was about to sink. There were no more services. Services were staffed. There was no more work for the natives themselves. So the European Union, the conservative government, said enough is enough. It is not because black people went there. It is because the Europeans themselves from Eastern Europe, using European Union passport, were very many of them in Britain. When you look at the plight of the Mexicans crossing over in the United States, coming up to United States, they face, you saw Trump build a wall. Trump made history by building a wall, which Joe Biden is not reversing because the money for the wall has already been paid. That's a plight of the refugees. How many Mexicans die every day in Latin America? How many Latin Americans die every day crossing over to find a safe haven from terrorist organizations, from drug barons, from lack of employment, from lack of everything? How many of them, thousands and millions, are trying to cross over into America? The same happened to the northern frontier of Canada. How many of people try to enter through to Canada? We see that Canada is still one of the countries in the world that still takes a junk of refugees. They still asks for more because one part of Canada is equivalent to traveling 2 days up to about Australia. One country is a huge country. If you are in Ottawa to reach Vancouver, you are hammering 8 hours by a jumbo jet. So people still, there are no people there. There are no people there. The place is not densely populated. But the conditions have made people not settle much in that place. When you come back on the North African frontier, the plight of refugees again, it brings you the refugees that are going through the Mediterranean Sea into the metros of Europe, of France, Italy, Greece, and other parts of the Mediterranean enclave. and you look at the refugees that are suffering, dying, drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, what then should the world look at when they are looking at the plight of the refugees? What are the causes? What are the reasons? What brings the huge number of Africans to leave Eritrea to go to look for work? What brings a huge number of Africans who are going through all from the West African Sahel region, Gambia, all those states, Nigeria. In fact, at the moment, on this continent, Nigeria produces more refugees and Cameroon than any other country into Europe or America because of the bad governance, which is one of the results that has hampered most of these African countries. That's why you see the Kenyan government, at the moment, it has the obligations, but it has reached a point when you have a neighbor called Somalia wanting you to vacate, taking you to court, yet you are keeping his people, yet you are looking at his people, yet you are feeding them for years and years. The country becomes very paranoid, and therefore nobody can blame the government of Kenya. It's just to mediate with them, have dialogue with them, seek their audience, ask them what can be done to give them time, to give UN time. Another point is financial obligations. Kenya ends up paying its own resources in order to feed. There is no much money coming out for these refugees to do programs that are needed to sustain, to resettle them. A country like Uganda, for example, takes a huge chunk of refugees. But one of the policies of the Uganda government is that once you are a refugee in Uganda, immediately you are done and screened that you are not a terrorist or you are not somebody harmful to the community. You are immediately given permission to go and look for work. And they start work. That's why you see most Sudanese in Uganda, most Somali. The Somali community in Uganda has progressed. Most of the hotels, the chain, the food chain that you people see in your capital city down in Nairobi, Miriam, where you are, C and J, is a product of the Ugandan Somali who was a refugee himself during the days of Siad Barre. And they have made up life. They are given automatic, after some time they become citizens and they are assimilated. The same happens to the Rwandese. Uganda has a big chunk of Rwandese, Congolese, who have come out as a result of the upheaval. Kenya has received a huge number simply because Kenya's democracy has been stable. The stability, the norms, the lack of military coups. There is no change of government here. You can change the leaders, but you cannot change the institutions, Miriam. The institutions in Kenya of prison remain the institutions. The institutions of prison services, immigration services are safeguarded by the Constitution. In some of the countries in Europe and some of the countries in Africa, the institutions are not there at all. They don't have an immigration policy. So that one serves as a very, very important, important points that you must take. So has Kenya reached a point where it says, I have had enough? Yes, because of the provocation that you see of a very ungrateful neighbor. Therefore, the only route is to mediate. The last point I want to make is the behavior of refugee. Some of us, when we ended up in countries that we did not know we would end up, we ended up in very, and at least some of these people are ending up in countries where you find another black man. But some of us found white men in those countries. White women, some people that you don't know, you have to learn English. You have to start afresh. Even if you had a degree, your degree was not very important. You have to go back and throw the degree out and start schooling. It was a hard job, especially when you go to America to settle there, or Britain, or France, or any of the European countries. You have to learn their language. You must know their history. So it is the plight of refugee must be addressed wholesomely by UN, not partly, not piecemeal. UN must be able to address why do refugees happen, why do they occur, why do they come, what is the problem, what is their point? Why should countries export human beings? The root causes are what we are seeing in your country, Kenya. Two similar factions emerging now. One Kenya Alliance, another one not known, which is going to merge. But they are doing a repeat of 2007. Because I have heard on the news that this is what is happening in the social media. I've read. But you are now preparing for harvesting of refugees. Both internal, if you don't do what we call the BBI, come back to a unit of purpose, get a new electoral body, you are producing refugees. I submit media.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Doctor, there. And before Douglas comes in, one of our viewers here, Abdi Grosi, thank you so much for engaging with us this afternoon. You're saying refugees are a creation of Americans and its Western allies. Once prosperous and progressive countries like Iraq, Syria, you mentioned them, has been destabilized by American. But let me just go to on closure of refugee camps, there are a number of problems. One, environmental impact depleted, insecurity due to unchecked availability of guns, and number three, deprivation of Kenyan citizens' rights. Kenyans are more poorer than refugees who are in the Dadaab and Kakuma. And four, scarcity of resources such as water. Though Kenya is a signatory to international obligation, Kenya is pushed to the limit which will no longer be sustained. Douglas, from what Doctor has said and what one of our viewers there is saying, I know we had a bit of this conversation earlier on in the morning. I don't know, what is your take?
Thank you, Miriam. What Dr. Masanga said is the truth. And when refugees come into a country, they are supposed to have followed a set of rules and procedures and all that. But the issue of refugees, like we said even in the morning, and like doctors perfectly said, that this issue is all over. The other day we saw Biden saying that, no, you are not welcome to America. My answer to refugees is that stay where you are. If Biden in a first world country is saying no to refugees, President Donald Trump built a wall to stop people from going to America. In Europe today, they are having a problem in Mediterranean Sea. There are thousands of people from West Africa and North Africa today that are dying in Mediterranean Sea, trying to go there for greener pastures and all that. But Doctor has said something that is that has stood for me, out for me. The whole of Africa, the only place that can be able to accommodate more refugees than any other place is Kenya. And Kenya today stands at over 4,000 refugees from Somalia. And at this point is where we ask ourselves these questions. When will these refugees go back to their country and help rebuild their own countries? When will these refugees go back and rebuild their own infrastructure and also build their countries? I hear people of Somali origin and every other country say that refugees have helped rebuild our country and our economy. We are asking as the people of Kenya, when are you going to your own country so that you can be able to rebuild your own country? And Dr. Masanga gave a point that I also gave out. If refugees in this country cannot be able to go back to Somalia, they need to go back and chase Farmajo from power. They need to go to Vira Somalia in cabinet, for MPs, in National Assembly, and chase these people out of power so that they can have a better country. And for UN Security Council, they need to be able to see what is happening. This has now become a global issue. It has become a global security threat. When these refugees and also terrorists integrate and also work together, it becomes an issue where these people become profiled, become a threat even to the security of nations, especially the Republic of Kenya. Remember, it is in the same refugee camps that we have found grenades, we have found bomb-making equipment and chemicals and all manner of things, Miriam. So the issue is in their country, because we seem to have like Somalia has now become more pacified. They have peace in their country because every day they are training over 1,000 Somalis. They are training people so that they can be able to train them for war. The money that they are using to train people is the money they can be able to use for repatriation of their people. They need to repatriate people and take them back to their countries so that they can rebuild their countries, and also so that they can be able to give a breath to the Republic of Kenya, which houses so many refugees, especially of Somali origin, Miriam. So my take from Dr. Masanga is that if your government is not working and so many people are running from your country, you need to go back there, chase those people from power. Farmajo was supposed to have called for elections from 8th of February in 2021, but that man has not done so. Many 1 month and many days later, a man continues staying in power and his own country is burning, Miriam. Refugees continue staying in countries where they feel their rights are being infringed on. But Miriam, I have said that there is no international statute or international signatory. Kenya is party to that we can be able to abrogate our own security as a country in order to be able to help refugees, because even in Somalia, they cannot be able to accommodate over 1 million Kenyans at the behest of Somali people. So it is the high time these people went to their countries, changed government, and also helped build their country. They cannot build their countries, Miriam, in Kakum and Dadaab refugee camps. They need to go back to their country, rebuild their country, so that Kenyans can also rebuild their country. And we shall have peace. The other side shall have peace. We shall have peace, because Falmajo is not greater than the people who are suffering in Kakuma, Miriam. Okay. And also Dadaab. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Douglas Kirimi, thank you so much. Doctor, let me read you a bit of a news item that the Daily Nation did yesterday, and I think we had a look at it earlier. President Uhuru Kenyatta's government had initially agreed on the repatriation in November 2013 with Somalia and the UNHCR, which would have seen the refugee return home over a 3-year period. However, only 14,000 have been repatriated by April 2016, and the following month, Kenya set another timeline for the closure of the Dadaab refugee complex by November 30th, 2016. The government in this time determined to see to it that refugees are all repatriated within the next 4 months. Kenya has since protested that the international community, including UNHCR, never honored a pledge to contribute to a Kiti to facilitate the repatriation. Kenya, which was the only contributor, having put in $10 million, that is an equivalent of 1 billion Kenya shillings, says a United Nations camp can be set up in Somalia. Besides abandoning Kenya to foot the bills alone, Nairobi has also protested that the world powers have frustrated attempts to have the Al-Shabaab, who operate from bases war-torn Somalia, designated as a terrorist organization. So we see that Kenya, Somalia, and UNHCR had an agreement in 2013 to start a process of repatriating these refugees back to their countries, but it appears only Kenya kept its side of the bargain. So right now, we've seen in the latest announcement by the Interior CS to close the refugee camps, giving an ultimatum of 14 days, which I don't know how practical that is. The UNHCR is now urging Kenyans to ensure that those who need protection continue to get it, and pledge to keep engaging in a dialogue. What kind of a dialogue should Kenya, UNHCR, and Somalia be having right now, Doctor?
A dialogue of cooling down. Somalia has cooled down, because you cannot bake all cakes and eat them. It is baking the oil cake on the water. It is trying to bake Al-Shabaab cake. It is eating it. And the Miriam across in Dadaab, it is also baking the cake. All right. Kenya is spending colossal amounts to support the refugees. At the same time, Kenya is spending money to go to The Hague to plead with Somalia that come back and we sit down. Kenya is spending thousands and millions of dollars in terms of humanitarian efforts, main human resource, money. People are being killed. Our soldiers are being killed. So Kenya has a very valid point to look at this. What is it that they are gaining in? They are not eating any cake, even the crumbs they are not eating. In Indian Ocean, the Somali people wanted to make Kenya landlocked. In Dabab, terrorists are preparing from there to come and kill Kenyans. In Mogadishu, the government is saying he has cut off relationship with Kenya, called the ambassador, sacked our ambassador. So why should Kenya now be in the... Kenya has done the best. So let's have dialogue. Dialogue is the best way. But how do you go to dialogue when you don't have a standing point? The standing point is the refugee. Let's begin from here. Why do you want to fight us? Who are making your place safer so that your refugees return home? That's a strategy, and that's a strategy. That's a very big strategy. And it's a strategy that the government of Kenya must use up to the end so that the UN can understand. And Miriam, all I told you that all these things on this panel, all what we are rambling about, this thing will end up there. Have you seen that everything is going to end up there? There is no need. Nobody is going to honor the agreement, the ruling that will come in October, in September. Which country will honor that they have ruled that the oil blocks are for Somalia? You have just blown a whistle for a war. Yes, and no country will seize any territory. All ships will stand there. And we are now going to destabilize a very peaceful area in the region where we have international trade. Where are we going to pass with those ships, Miriam? We are not looking at it from that point of view. Just as we did not look at it when we were bombing Libya. Just as we did not look at it when we were arming ISIS against Assad. The Americans armed ISIS, the terrorist groups, to go and invade Syria. See where we are now. See what has happened in the Middle East. See what ISIS has done in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in all those areas. How many refugees are suffering in Greece, on the waters, in ships, in bad condition? It is because of the bad policies of the United Nations Security Council itself. You bomb a place, you create refugees. America went and armed ISIS. They were arming terrorists. The terrorists took away the arms and turned on them. Where are we now? Is Syria not still there? Assad is there. Why don't these countries learn from the past, Miriam? That if you hate a leader, go and target the leader if you want. Take him away, but don't destroy the country. Look at Aleppo. Look at the war in Aleppo. Aleppo, those are areas where Paul was preaching. And these are areas where Jesus was passing. This is the period of Lent. And in this period of Lent, Miriam, we must speak out the truth to our fellow Christians and Muslims. We must see the symbols. Where is the world going? Kenya is right to stand up to say, you are not helping us. You can't now put us in court in Hague. You are putting us in Mogadishu, Kismayo, and Dabab, and the border. And then you are banning cars. Yesterday they banned another car around the border. So what is what does Kenya get out of this? Kenya does not get any money out of this. Kenya gets misery. So Kenya has a right to stand up and say enough is enough. Let the UN bring a broader policy of changing a governance systems in Somalia. We are struggling to put, if we can fail, let me ask one question to Miriam. If we can fail for sure to form a government, a functioning government in Mogadishu, how shall we conquer the Al-Shabaab? Have you seen what is happening in Mogadishu? The Somalis themselves can't agree to form a peaceful transition. Farimajo doesn't want to leave. He has brought in money to buy everybody for him to continue with a style of an African autocrat who always stays in power because he has been injected with syndromes of the man from Turkey who has stayed in power. You know, the longest serving president in Europe is that guy, that one, and the Chancellor Merkel. He has never been thrown out of power. He just turns into prime minister, then he comes into president, then he changes. He has brought that habit into Mogadishu and taught Farimajo how to play tricks. And then you have Qatar, which has come to play. There is no election. Have you ever heard of an election in Qatar? We have no election in Qatar. So Qatar has come to educate Somalis not to have elections. You see all countries coming to beg, can we have a government? UN has to put down its feet. And what Kenya has done is a signal. And that signal is not, must be accepted. That I support Matiang.
All right. Thank you so much. One of our viewers here, Ogebe Omoto-chan, thank you for engaging with us. You're saying many refugees live in Kenya, for instance, from Ethiopia, South Sudan, Uganda, Congo, and Burundi, and that is true. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has scheduled a meeting on Friday with ambassadors of other neighboring countries to discuss the fate of the citizens, those who have their citizens here as refugees. And the talks will either explore whether those who merit can acquire legal papers or get them all to go back home. Kenya is, however, unable to extend similar diplomacy to Somalia because Mogadishu severed diplomatic ties with Nairobi. So the rest of the refugees, I think, from other countries have nothing to worry about if you're able to process your papers and all that. But that is the government has not come clearly to explain that, but that is according to this story on the Daily Nation. And the reason why even that camp, the government wanted to close it in 2016, is because of the insecurity that comes because of our proximity to Somalia. So I think the Dadaab is more a security threat, maybe compared to other camps, refugee camps, from other parts of the country. Mm-hmm.
Miriam, let me chip in here. Mm-hmm. The points you are raising are good. Mm-hmm. You know why? The formation of the Dadaab was those days a peaceful climate under Moi. At the moment, Dadaab is a security risk, is a security target. Because you can't, it's a few kilometers you are crossed into Somalia. According to the regulations of United Nations, you are not supposed to be near 250 miles away near the border with the country where you have run from. You get my point? It is there, read the Geneva Convention. And you are not supposed to run, when you have been given asylum, you don't run back to that country where you say it was a very bad country. You get my point? Because once you go back to there, your asylum is automatically cancelled. It means you have nothing else to fear in that system. Okay? So if you live in these circumstances, you become assimilated. Okay, the people who have lived in the above have been assimilated. Some have got Kenyan IDs, but they are Somali nationals. Okay, but then what they are doing is this. When you start talking about a topic that touches Somalia, they are on the other side. They are on the other side. And so they have made their cake, they eat it in every region. In Mogadishu, they are eating the cake. In Kismayo, they eat the cake. In Indian Ocean, Lamu, the oil blocks, Somalia is eating the cake. When it comes to Dabab, they are still eating the cake. So, Kenya government, it's not, they have not attacked Ugandans. There are Ugandans in that camp. And yes, there are conditions that force some of the Ugandans not to return home. Some of them are even coming out now, very many. They are applying for asylum in some countries because of the conditions that are there, political persecution and so, which is very basic condition for admission of a refugee. So here we are. The Kenya government cannot be blamed, and anybody blaming a Kenya government when you have a very bad neighbor. The blame now should squarely lie on the countries that are sugarcoating Mogadishu. And those countries who are flying in, Italy flew in with money. You get the point. Yesterday they were there. Another country flew in with, Turkey flew in with cash. Qatar flies in with cash. Sugarcoating Norway. Norway it is here saying backtracking on its statement. They are not creating conducive conditions for governance in Mogadishu for the refugees to be able to return. I submit. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you. And Doctor, I think that is where we end our show this afternoon. Thank you so much. Douglas,
yes.
Thank you so much. And our viewers, thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. We'll meet you here tomorrow, God willing, for another edition of The Punch that will come at 10. Usually you have one show on Friday. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.